Wonderful. And thanks, audience. You guys have been really engaged and awesome up to this point today, so don't lose that throughout the day. And she says challenge people at the end there. I was like, Michelle, I'm not challenging you to anything, okay? We know what you're capable of. Yeah, exactly. Get back there. Goodness. Up next, we have Catherine Park. And whoever's got the clicker backstage, if you'll just, they're on it. Catherine Park. Okay, she's from just near here in London. She is the community and events lead at Color in Tech, has done a lot of social impact work, really focused on that throughout her career, but really looks at community engagement and focus from an in-person event lens, so that direct engagement. And I always, whenever you're at something that someone does for a living, I always think it's like, I wonder what's in their head. You know, if you're like watching a ballet and you're sitting with a ballerina, you're thinking like, are they judging this, you know, the whole time they're watching? So now I'm just wondering backstage like what Catherine Park is thinking about our in-person event that we have today, because this is of course her main focus, but maybe we'll find out right away. So please help welcome Catherine to the stage.
What a great introduction. Thank you. And hi, everyone. How are we feeling today? Good? Oh, amazing. Love the energy. Love the energy. Now, this is supposed to be a GIF of a cat raising their hand, because that's what we're going to start with. We're going to start by raising some hands here. So I've got 3 questions here for you. Question 1, raise your hand if you're a community leader. Okay, great. I'd be shocked if we didn't have that many hands going up. Amazing. So raise your hand again if you have planned and delivered at least one event this year. Amazing. Also love to see it. And lastly, raise your hand if the way your community meaningfully interacts with each other and yourself is through events. Ooh. Amazing. Okay, some hands. Okay, we're going to hopefully try and change that attitude by the end of this talk. So, because I'm a big passion, well, I have a huge passion, in fact, for events and how they bring people together and how they bring people to connect and how we can basically encourage community growth and loyalty through those experiences together. But why are events so important for community growth and success? Well, firstly, that sense of belonging and connection, and to be able to strengthen bonds, not just with you as community leaders, but also with each other. We had a great talk earlier about advocates. This is going to be able to help build further advocates in each other, but also be able to support each other in their own endeavors as well. Secondly, to promote positive mental well-being. So if you saw the stats from the campaign against loneliness in the UK in 2022, 49% of people in the UK have identified that they felt lonely, which is huge. And community events can be a really big part of bringing people together with shared passions and shared experiences to help make them feel a little bit less lonely and to help, again, drive further loyalty, which leads into our third part, which is building trust in your community. Because when you have people who are there that love what you do, who love each other, then it makes a much better experience. So for the next probably about 13 minutes of this talk, I'm going to make it super practical for you all and share 4 key lessons that I've had from building events that have helped grow communities and help them succeed throughout times. So then it's super easy for you to take away today. So firstly, it comes from understanding your community themselves. So again, we're going to do another set of raising hands. So firstly, put your hand up if you are part of a team in a community that is under 5 people. Okay, most people. And then keep your hand up if you fully understand from your own experiences exactly what your community wants or needs. Okay, a few people. Glad to hear that, but most of the room not got their hands up. So this is the first question that we need to answer. And I'm going to start by saying it's completely reasonable and you shouldn't be expected to know off the top of your head exactly what they want. But we should be working to understand that. So first thing I want to do is give you a couple of examples of how you can gather this information from your community. So there's 3 different ways that we can do that, and I'd recommend a variety of all of these. So starting with your focus groups. So you want to create a bunch of different groups where you've got different members, diverse members of your community coming together and then basically sharing their thoughts on what's happening, sharing on specific areas, and basically gathering all that insight that you wouldn't be able to necessarily gather from something like a feedback survey. So getting those together, normally I tend to say these are one-off groupings, so keeping them as diverse as possible that represent your community is amazing. Then you have your advisory boards. So these are slightly different in terms of what I tend to advise for these is to have certain areas of your community. So for example, when I was leading the community at Circle, which was a social impact-based organization that paired young people from low socioeconomic backgrounds with business professionals to learn the skill of coaching, we had 2 different advisory boards, one of young people and then one of business professionals, asking them completely different topics and completely different insights, which was super helpful in understanding, for example, how can we get more young people employed into these roles? And from their insights that we gained, we actually managed to get another 10 young people employed into the companies that were there, which was amazing. And then also from the working professionals, like why did they engage with our community? What did they find value in coaching? Why did they choose us over anybody else? All of these insights wouldn't have been possible without our advisory boards. And then finally, surveys. Now, I'm a big advocate for surveys, but you've got to get them right. So making sure that you have that value and you're showing them at the start of, look, this is why we're asking you these questions, this is how we're going to use it, and also this is what we're going to do with it. So when you first do your surveys, you may see a high uptake or you may see a low uptake. Either is perfectly fine. But when you have that information and say, for example, for us, our working professional community said to us, hey, look, we get it, you're sending us loads of job opportunities, the market is scary, it's tech. But what we really want is the opportunity to make a name for ourselves in these spaces and to be able to actually speak to recruiters that are out there. So we're like, great. We've put on 2 events already, and we have another 9 scheduled before the end of the year where we're supporting people to do that. And we've now seen our event attendance rating up to about 78% turnout, which is amazing. And then our open rate for our emails are now about 79% because people are seeing the value in that and are going, oh, wow, you're actually listening to us and what we want, and you're delivering that. That's based on these surveys. So then when we come around again and we say, hey, look, this is all the stuff we've done. You've told us, like, as founders, you want co-working spaces. Okay, this is what we're going to do. You say that you want co-founders. This is what we're going to do. For students, they say they want other opportunities outside of education to be able to take involvement in. Great, here's what you can do. And by listening to them, we're seeing, again, further engagement, further participation, which is super, super helpful. Now, what's key with all of this is regularity and just making sure that you're regularly collecting that feedback and you're collecting it in a number of different ways. Next thing to do is don't neglect your communications. Now, whilst I could do an entire session based on communications, that's not what we're here today about. So I'm going to give you 5 top tips to be able to make sure that your communications are right at the start because that's where the experience is going to start for your members. So firstly, keep the format basic. So what I mean by this is there's so many colors that you can use, there's so many block text, etc. Don't worry about it. Make it so it's come from your own email. And what I mean by this is, like I said, you don't need those big texts. You can keep it basically based on easy text, highlighting, etc. Just make it look like it's personal. There was actually an old anecdote that was like, if you were to be sent a wedding invitation and you were sent a handwritten letter from somebody asking you to come, or a WhatsApp message saying, hey, I've got a space at my wedding, would you like to come along? Which one are you more likely to engage with? Yeah, exactly, the handwritten one, right? So making it like look basic, look personal, which leads to number 2. By this, I mean personal in 2 different ways. So one, who it's coming from, and also who it's going to. By that, it's like, okay, I'm making sure that it's sent from me, because people do know me in our community, or somebody from our team, and it's using my own email address. But also, it's using personal information in those emails as well. So for example, I have it set up that if we have somebody's nickname, it will say the nickname at the top. If we don't have that, then it's a first name. If we don't have that, it's then only hi. And then we make sure our targeting is like, okay, if you're based in London, we'll only send you London-based events. If you're an entrepreneur, we'll send you entrepreneurship-based events, and keep it really specific. So then people know the value in engaging with you, and they realize that from giving us the information that they have, that we're using it for their benefit. Next is actually going to be don't be too often and don't be too scarce. So it sounds like a bit of a contradiction, but bear with me on this one. So we've all had that person who's very much spamming us quite a lot, sending us a lot of emails, and we're like, oh my God, please stop. So this is a bit of a trial and error, right? But generally, I tend to say 2 emails, max 3 per event, inviting people is plenty, depending on your time limit. But it's just making sure that you're engaging them with them enough that they remember, that they see it, but also not too much that they're like, whoa, we need a break. So yeah, making sure you've got that balance right, which only comes with trial and error. Next is don't neglect the subject line. So this is the first thing that people are going to see when they see your email and when they see your invitation. So make sure that you highlight the value right from the offset. So for example, our community, when they join us, and I'm going to show you an example in a minute, they say that their key reason for joining us is to connect with like-minded people. So we're saying connect right at the start in that subject line so people know, and then they open that email. Basically, what I'm saying is highlight the value, which is 0.5. And that goes in your subject line, but also throughout. Here's a key example of that. So here's 2 examples of what maybe a welcome email would be to our community when you join. So the one of them is actually our welcome email, and one of them is just something I've quickly mocked up as an opposing example. Would anybody like to take a guess which one does better? Is it the one on the left or the one on the right? Okay, everybody's pointing that way. Okay, great. Nice to know everybody's listening. So the one on the left absolutely is the one that is correct. So as you can see, we're highlighting the value, joining our brand new LinkedIn community, making sure the call to action is highlighted. That value is there right at the start when you're glancing at it. And you can see at the top, again, our subject keeps that connect in place. It's my name and my email. Please don't spam me. But it's all there ready to go, so then people know who it's coming from and where it is. And actually, this email at the moment has an 89% open rate, which is pretty impressive. So, and then the second one is one that I've kind of seen versions of around, which it's a lot of text, it's a lot of heavy, it's not very clear, and not going to lie, if I see this in my inbox, I'm putting it straight in the bin. So, yeah. Next one is authenticity and engagement a win. So you've now spent the time learning about your community, what they find valuable, you've communicated with them, you've got them excited about coming to your event. Now you need to make sure that that experience mimics over. Now, again, this could be a whole session in itself. However, I'm going to give you a couple of key bits to make sure that that experience is top-notch right at the start. So firstly is your speakers and your suppliers. Make sure they're representative of your community, right? So look at who is there and be like, okay, well, if I've got a community of women, let's get a female DJ, right? If I've got a community for people who are disabled, let's get a photographer who has a disability. Or even if your community is for everyone, make sure that diversity is spread across everywhere. And I mean down to everybody who is involved, because actually that makes a huge difference in seeing, okay, you are supporting people of our community, you are supporting people out here, then you actually have our best interests at heart as well. In fact, we actually do calls out to our own community and say, hey, look, we have an event. Does anybody want to come and photograph for us? Obviously, we'll pay them. But we say, look, we want to give the opportunity back to you. Next one is food. Food is the way to your community's heart. It always is, always will be. The amount of times where we haven't had food and people have gone, Catherine, where's the food? is so high. But if you do have food, make sure it's authentic, again, to your community. So making sure that, think about it. So for our community at Colour and Tech, we make sure that we serve jollof, we serve plantain, we serve jerk, etc. for our community. As well, if you've got people with allergens, just make sure that you're understanding them early on. You've got things labeled so then people feel confident in eating what is there. Essentially what I'm saying here is, as event managers, we can do better than just pizza parties. And lastly, we have music, because music is a big way to set the tone, set the vibe, and help people feel comfortable in a space. So whether you've got high budget and can afford a DJ, good for you, or if you've got low budget, like me, and need a playlist, then what you can do is you can get feedback from your community and ask them, what sort of music do you like to listen to? And actually, we create WhatsApp groups before events, and we say, okay, send us some songs that you like. What's a vibe for you? And then we base a playlist, or we send this to a DJ and say, hey, can you build something based on that? And guess what? Community loves it. And they are really involved in it each time. And then actually we find it really difficult to get them to leave the event afterwards. So pros and cons. But they always end up coming back, which is good. So there's some examples for you. Now, finally, lesson 4. So it's follow-up, feedback, and FOMO. So the 3 Fs. So I'm going to break this down very quickly for you. So follow-up seems a bit obvious, but make sure you follow up. Keep that authentic experience. Keep that personalization. Send them the speakers LinkedIn. Send them what's coming up next. Keep that excitement going while the energy is high. Next is feedback. Try and do it while you're at the event. If not, you can try and do it directly after, but make sure you're clarifying what feedback you need, essentially. And what we try to do is I have something called event quality scales, which is based on right at the start when we're collecting that feedback from people, what are the key things that people are looking for? Is it connection? Is it networks? Is it inspiration? And then build a scale based on those, and then measure those at each event to find out what you're doing well and where you need to improve. And finally, my favorite is FOMO. So at every event, we try to have a photographer, and my brief to my photographer is, look, yeah, get some of the panel, like it's fine, it's all good, we do need that. But I really want photos of the audience, right? I want photos of our community, I want photos of people, right? Because that's who we're here for, that's who we're here to serve, right? And in that follow-up email, we have a link where people can also add photos, but they can also see those professional photos from the photographer taken, and we encourage them to post. And we say, look, they're yours. Use them for, use them for LinkedIn, use them for Instagram, use them for wherever you want. They are yours. It's your face. And it leads to things like this, which is where our community shares loads of photos and loads of experiences on LinkedIn of what they're doing with us, this is from one of our last events. As you can see at the bottom, like some of them again, like 97, like likes and interactions, again, like 66, and then loads more as well. And just getting this engagement from people so the people who didn't come go, oh my goodness, I need to be at the next one because that looks great. And then carrying that on. And also the subconsciousness of posting shows your alliance with that community as well and means that they're more likely to speak positively about you and then also come back for the future. So I'm aware I'm pretty much at time, so I'm going to go through a quick recap of understand your community, don't neglect your communications, authenticity and engagement will win, follow-up, feedback, and FOMO. I'm Catherine. I've been your speaker. I've been in social impact community management for about 8 years. Absolutely love it. If you want to connect with me, I'll be around for a bit afterwards, or scan my QR code to connect with me on LinkedIn. Lovely to meet you all.